Welcome to Impact Makers Radio, helping you to find jargon-free information before choosing a professional to help solve your problems and live the life you love. And here's your host, Stewart Andrew Alexander.
Hi and welcome to another Let's Talk Divorce conversation. And during this segment of the show, I have Kelley Linn, CEO of Divorce Mediation Center, all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. Now, Kelley, who is somewhat of an experienced authority, so to speak, in the area of divorce, will be talking to you today about a very important and a very interesting topic. Kelley's here today to talk about saving, wait for this, saving at least $40,000 or more in legal fees while avoiding the trauma of litigative divorce. Now, that sounds like a really fantastic topic, and I can't wait to hear so much more from Kelley today. So if you are one of those unfortunate people who do find themselves in the position of facing a divorce, maybe you're already in a divorce or you've gone through a divorce, and you find that today's topic is something that you can relate to, then it just might be a good idea for you to stop what you're doing, log out of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or anything else you happen to be doing. Give yourself a break, grab yourself your favorite beverage, and get ready to take some notes as we listen in to what Kelley has to share with us today. So let's not keep her waiting any longer. She's a very, very busy lady. Welcome to the show, Kelley.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
You are so welcome, my dear. We're glad to have you on. We understand just how busy you are over there. So let's just jump feet first in then, Kelley. Briefly, please describe the kinds of people who you serve and the various types of situations they find themselves in when they come to you for your help.
Well, our mediation centers offer 3 different services. We serve families who are considering separation so that they can work on mending their marriage. We serve families who are divorcing, and we also serve families who want to renegotiate the settlement terms and create and file a divorce settlement modification. But our primary service is helping families through a very cost-efficient divorce process. We have mediators and attorneys that work for our advocacy that serve our families that come to us.
Fantastic. So you provide somewhat of a 360-degree service, so to speak, for those people who come to you for your help, right?
Yes, it's a full divorce service all the way from the beginning of the process to the filing of the settlement documents on the back end with attorneys.
Okay, fantastic. So keeping in mind then, Kelley, that anything you share with us today is not legal advice or legal assistance. You're not an attorney. It's purely for the purpose of sharing information. Can you just expand on that in your own words so that all the listeners out there are absolutely clear about what we're doing today and that we're not giving legal advice or legal assistance?
Yes, we'll talk about the different methods of getting divorced, which are basically service models. It's not legal advice. It's not advice an attorney would provide as legal advice for a very specific case. It's simply an explanation of what options a family has if they decide that they need to get divorced.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Kelley. Now that everybody is absolutely clear on what we're doing today, when you think about those people who come to you for your help, what's the most common misconception? Just share one or two, because I know there are just so many that you could share with us, but what's the most common misconceptions that they have surrounding today's topic of, saving money, at least $40,000 in legal fees while avoiding the trauma of litigative divorce?
The biggest misconception is that when one or both of the spouses go out and they sign a contract with an attorney and engage an attorney, that attorney will charge a retainer fee. And usually that retainer fee, at least in Atlanta, Georgia, ranges anywhere from $2,500 to $10,000, depending on which law firm you go to. Most people assume that that engagement fee is all that it will cost to get divorced. But the average divorce in Atlanta starts at about $50,000, and it can range all the way up to several $100,000. The retainer is simply a commitment to engage the attorney in what they call the litigated divorce process, which is the divorce court process, which is a very costly process that most families have no idea where they're headed as far as total expense to the family. A mediated divorce can cost substantially less, between $5,000 and $10,000 total.
Right, so based on what you just shared with us then, Kelley, and obviously keeping client confidentiality in mind, please share an example of how you have helped, or even how you would go about helping somebody who came to you with those challenges, those misconceptions you just described, and what kind of transformational results you were able to, or in general, would be able to gain for them.
Well, basically what our family advocacy has done is we've created a completely alternative service model to serve families. We align the husband and wife, even if they're not getting along. We can deal with high conflict couples, but we align the family with financial expertise to show the family what a fair financial settlement is, with parenting plan experts that show the family if a child parenting plan and custody plan need to be developed, how to develop one to fit the needs of the family. And then we bring in 2 attorneys on the back end to represent each of the spouses to prepare the documents and file the documents. So what we've done is we've made almost a hybrid of the pro se process, which is the husband and wife doing their divorce on their own, with the proper professionals that serve them that control the costs that the professionals charge. Does that make any sense?
It does. It makes complete sense. And I'm so glad that you just took the time to spell that out in detail for our listeners, as I'm sure that's going to be very useful for them, Kelley. So without going into your background now, Kelley, because you're going to have an opportunity to speak about that later on. But how many years have you been in this industry, helping people with your family advocacy?
About 8 years. I established my advocacy back in 2010, and I was a consultant for families for 5 years, and finally realized just recently in the last 3 years that we actually needed to open up full service centers and guide these families through this process.
So with that in mind then, Kelley, and for those people who are out there considering divorce and they're listening in right now, what's one of the many pitfalls? And again, it was like the misconceptions. There are so many pitfalls that you could share with us today. However, we are limited by time. So what's one of, let's say, 1 or 2 of the many pitfalls or misguided truths that they need to be aware of, no matter what kind of situation they find themselves in?
Well, that litigated divorces can take anywhere from 18 months to several years to complete, and that they can actually bankrupt a family savings account or even incur a large debt for the family that they didn't need to have. I hate to kind of keep drilling on the whole financial aspect, but a lot of families that need to get divorced don't realize that if they're not conscientious about the method that they choose to get divorced, that they could find themselves having to deplete their retirement account, having to deplete their savings account having to be forced to sell a family home in order to pay for the bills, and then moving forward, how can the two households thrive financially if they've depleted everything that they've accumulated prior to the divorce? And so it's very important that before a family embark on any method of divorce, that they take into consideration the financial status that they're going to find themselves in through and post-divorce.
So that said then, Kelley, what other perceived obstacles do you see out there that might be preventing people from seeking the help of a family advocacy like yours?
Well, a lot of couples make the assumption that if there's high conflict between the husband and the wife, that they are not candidates for mediation. But if I were, to tell you, if I could save you hundreds of thousands of dollars or even tens of thousands of dollars, wouldn't you try that process first? And a very skilled mediator has no problem mediating a settlement terms between a high conflict couple. They just do it in two different rooms and they shuttle back and forth. Really, when you work through the mediated divorce process with a seasoned mediator that is a good listener, that can understand how each term that you're going to discuss through the settlement process affects each party and helps these two parties meet in the middle, okay? It's a life experience that the husband and wife may never have experienced before. I don't know. And it's modeling how the family needs to move forward from this point on, because if a couple has children, they're always going to be a family. They just might be structured a different way, but they're going to need to work together through some of the most challenging times of life, as well as some of the celebrations of life that they have for their children, like college graduations or high school graduations or big birthdays or religious ceremonies or celebrations or the birth of their first grandchild, that sort of thing. And so if we can model for a high conflict husband and wife how you can be practical and sit down and make decisions that are going to affect your family moving forward in life, then we're really mentoring them on how they can move forward in their future.
So with that said then, Kelley, what would be the most important questions somebody should ask who, they're out there considering their options for divorce today? What's the most important questions they should ask themselves as they're considering their current situation?
Well, I think they should research, all the different options. Now, our organization is called Divorce Mediation Center, but we're not just mediators. That's just one piece of the process. You need attorneys to file the documents, and you need, an unbiased party to help the two spouses reach terms. But there's also a financial piece to a settlement that requires an unbiased third-party financial expert to show a family what is expected through the divorce settlement, what's fair and equitable, and that sort of thing. We have like a 3-step process where we align the family with the financial expert, and then we have the mediator, and then we have the attorney.
With that said, when you think about all of the people who you've been able to help them achieve their desired goals, the things they were looking for, that transformation you created for them when they initially reached out to you. When you think about all of those people that you've helped throughout your 8 years in this industry, on a deep down personal level, Kelley, what does it give you? What do you get from that?
Well, two things. From my own experience, I was financially devastated through my divorce. It took 2 years and cost $240,000, and I walked away with very little money left.
Right.
And so the one priority that we have is to help the family keep their family funds intact, so that as much savings and retirement that they have coming into the process, they will have to divide and keep intact after the process. So number one, it's really controlling the costs of the process for the family, because the family doesn't know the repercussions of, say, some professionals that are really focused on serving their family just to increase their own billable hours and their own income. Okay, so one, keeping the family funds intact. But what is even more important and difficult to measure, but certainly something that we can recognize, is keeping the family relational dynamics as peaceful as possible. Because when a family goes through a litigated divorce, yes, it costs a lot of money. We all know that, okay? But the relational dynamics of a broken-hearted marriage, when a family decides they need to get divorced, the family is brokenhearted. The husband, the wife, and the children, they're brokenhearted. The actual litigation divorce process causes even more conflict and even more relational pain on top of the already brokenheartedness of the family. Okay? If through the mediation process and through our centers, we can wrap the family in kindness and compassion and practical knowledge, then we can protect the family from that additional layer of wounding that is usually a result of the litigated divorce process. Relational wounding is what I'm talking about, emotional wounding. And so we are mentoring the husband and the wife how they should proceed even post the divorce process in making financial decisions that are going to affect the two different households moving forward and affect co-parenting and raising their children. Because even though a family gets divorced, they're still a family if the husband and wife have children together. And so we're showing the family how to transition. That's the name of our advocacy, is Transitions Resource. We're showing the family how to not be a family. There's a double negative there, not be a family. We are showing the family how to transition into an alternative family structure, which would be a divorced family, because you're always going to be a family if you have kids together. And so it's in everybody's best interest if the husband and wife can focus on this transition into two separate households as a business transaction, as a practical transaction, so that both partners thrive financially and that both partners can be practical and compassionate toward each other down the road if there's some decisions that they need to make about their children together and that sort of thing. It's, we try to mentor them from the very beginning of our service process on how two grown-ups, should handle a sticky situation.
This is so interesting, because what I'm picking up from today's discussion, Kelley, is, the topic is saving at least $40,000 or more in legal fees. And that speaks for itself. Whatever it is you do, you can save your clients money on legal fees. It says it right there on the tin. However, what you just shared is the second part of today's topic, is while avoiding the trauma of litigative divorce. I mean, how can you quantify that? That is just so... I can't say it's more important than saving money. It's certainly on a par than saving money. But for me personally, even more important than saving money. But for someone who's faced with divorce and they're having to pay out at least $40,000 or whatever the case may be, that might be for them the most important thing. But wait a minute. Saving the trauma of helping them go through that, and maybe there's children involved, surely that's got to have such a, I would say you can't even put a value on that, right?
Right. It's priceless. And the thing is, we're protecting, at our centers, we're protecting these families from a layer of wounding that they will never experience because they're staying out of the litigated process. And it's kind of hard, like you said, it's difficult to explain to a family the bullet that we're helping them dodge. It's very difficult because they will never experience that bullet, right? But
you're right.
But we're truly affecting generations, relational generations to come, because we're affecting how the parents handle this process and how the parents, as they go through this process, parent their children with less stress because the legal process is not creating an extra layer of tension and conflict. And the children can observe how their parents are handling this process in such a way that the impact is dramatically reduced. The negative impact of a divorce on the family and on the children is dramatically reduced. And, I said, we do workshops for the counseling industry at state conferences and conventions. And the counselors are always, recognizing at the end of the workshop, as we show them all the different service models and how we're doing what we're doing here in our centers. And they say, you are impacting several generations through this process. And that's immeasurable. So that truly, that is, it's like, what is that credit card company's ad? It's priceless. It really is priceless. That's the value of what we're doing. It's hard to measure. And it's hard to explain to somebody when they come to you for a consultation and they're thinking about engaging you in your services. It's very difficult to say, well, we're going to help you avoid, 30 years of stagnant relationships. We're going to help you guys work together so you can be in the same hospital room when your first grandbaby is born and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it makes, we are creating social change, and it's very exciting to change the landscape of how divorce is done.
It is, and I can underpin that as a child of divorce myself, having experienced a very volatile, a very bloody, a very violent divorce, and not having those kinds of resources available to me, and my parents not having those kind of resources available to them. I mean, we're talking 1975, 76, I would say 8-9-year-old kid, and carrying that guilt of my parents' breakup on my little shoulders all the way through my teenage years, through my young life, through, even to my mid-40s. It wasn't until then that I started to look into, finding resources to cope with the fallout, the emotional fallout of my parents' divorce. So, I could sit here and speak to you for hours on the negative impact that had on me as a child and as a young man, and the decisions that I made in my life, which, as you alluded to earlier, is having an impact on my next generation, because there are certain decisions I made in my life in terms of relationships that have affected the next generation. The good part is there were good decisions that I made, but initially that wasn't the direction I was going in. So yeah, it is priceless. It's one of those things where you're trying to sell something that is invisible, but it has so much more value than the actual thing, the $40,000 or whatever that fee may be, which people may lay more importance on. I can only just tell you from my perspective as a child of divorce that if if Kelley and her organization can do something to help you and your partner and your children and your family to avoid that emotional trauma, then I highly recommend that you at least, at a minimum, sit down and have a talk and see what they can do with you.
Well, I just wanted to say, about 99% of our clients come to us through family counselors. And the reason that the counselors endorse our service model is because if they have any expertise or any length of service in their industry, if they've been counseling for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, 10 years, 20 years, they have worked with a family that has gone through, or more, a family or many families that have gone through the trauma of a litigated divorce process. And they're on the front lines. The counselors are, the professional counselors are on the front lines, and they watch a family over 18 months go through what a litigious divorce process does to a family. And so it's to have their endorsement and for them to be our key source of referrals really reinforces that we really can make an impact on reducing the trauma of divorce with an alternative method.
With that said, could you just spend a brief moment telling us a little bit about your backstory, your formal education, and especially your experience as it relates to today's topic?
Oh, sure. Well, I have a Bachelor of Science and a Master's in business, but I was a stay-at-home mom to 2 children in a 16-year marriage. And when my husband and I decided that we needed to get divorced, we didn't know which way to go. I mean, all we knew was to go out and hire attorneys. And it took us 2 years to get through the divorce process, 25 months exactly. And over that 25 months, 4 different attorneys and several other professionals billed us a total of $242,000. And I walked away from that with about $90,000 in the 401k, and that was it. So in essence, our family paid the attorneys and the professionals that the attorneys brought in to our divorce process more than my husband and I were left with at the end. And I have always been a philanthropist and an activist, kind of all rolled into one. And I was mad. I was mad at the end of this process, a little bit at my ex-husband, but mostly at the professionals that had taken advantage of our family. And so I decided to start my organization. And I have a journalism subminor, and I went about the basic methodology of publishing a divorce prep workbook. We have that on our website to show families how not to do what my family did. I felt that it was my mission to try to serve those families coming behind me in this experience and try to help them avoid what my husband and I did not avoid. And so that's when I created Transitions Resource. We published the book, and we started working with family counselors to try to serve their clients on a consulting basis. And since then, we've published 5 books on divorce to help families who are considering divorce and help counselors who are serving families who are divorcing.
So, Kelley, for those people out there right now in the Atlanta, Georgia area who are listening in, what final thoughts would you like to share with them before we move on to our last question for today?
Well, I would say, the most important consideration for families who know they have to get divorced is please just mediate. Do not litigate. Mediate your divorce. 99% of all divorces can be settled through mediation. It's that one rare family case that has to actually use the litigated process and have a judge decide on how a family needs to divide their assets and maintain separate households.
So if somebody feels they want to know more about saving money on legal fees, or you even alluded to $40,000, it can be even more than that. If they're interested in finding out more about how to do that, and I would say even more importantly, if they want to know more about avoiding the trauma, the emotional trauma of litigative divorce, what's the quickest way to find you then, Kelley?
Well, they can find us on our website. It's divorcemediationcenter.org.
So let me ask you this then, Kelley. When they reach out to you, we've been speaking now for the best part of maybe half hour or so, and you've shared lots of great insights that are going to be really useful to the listeners out there. However, you may have one or two people who are still sat on the fence. They could benefit from speaking with you. However, they're still a little bit reserved. They're holding back because they don't know what's going to happen on the other end of that contact. So if they do reach out to you, Kelley, if they do visit your website, and if they do send you an email or pick up the phone and give you a call, could you just then briefly walk them through exactly what will happen so they know they're not going to get dragged by the hair around to the back of the office and hit over the head and sold everything under the sun? So could you just do that for us, please, Kelley? Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, we will answer as many questions as we can when they give us a call if they have very specific questions. We normally just set up a consultation where they come in and we show them all the different ways that a family can get divorced, explain our process, and we can give them hard quotes on what their fees would be if they did use us. But our consultations are free, and it normally never takes a family any longer than 45 minutes to an hour to go through all their different options. And really all we're doing is empowering them with information so that when they do choose whatever method they decide to choose, that they're well informed of how that method works. Does that make sense?
It makes 100% sense, Kelley, and thank you so much for sharing that with us and spending your time with us today. I feel that we could speak for so much longer. However, we are limited by time, and that's all we do have time for today. So once more, ladies and gentlemen, we have been listening to Kelley Linn. Thank you so much for sharing so generously today with us, Kelley. You have certainly demonstrated that you are a true educator, advocate, and trustworthy advisor for your client's success. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
You are so welcome, my dear. And I'd also like to say a big thank you to you. Yes, our listeners. So without you, we wouldn't have anybody to speak to, and we'd be sat here twiddling our thumbs. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join us on this very insightful and informative discussion with Kelley. Okay, Kelley Linn. Again, she shared such great insights today. I'm sure that if you do decide to get in touch with Kelley, that you'll most certainly be in good hands. So make sure you do check out those resources on her website and get in touch with her once you are ready to take the next step. So that's it, folks. My goodness, the time has flown by. My name again is Stewart Andrew Alexander, and we'll be back shortly with some more leading divorce professionals in this, our series of Let's Talk Divorce Conversations. So, until then, take care, have a great day, and we'll talk real soon.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Makers Radio. To listen to all past, present and future industry thought leaders and trendsetters, visit us at impactmakersradio.com.